Hi, everyone. Welcome to the bourbonstreetshots.com, the award-winning, I should say, bourbonstreetshots.com off-season Google Hangout. I'm Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, joined by one of our other writers, Mason Ginsberg, at Mason Ginsberg on Twitter. Mason, say hi to everybody.
Hi to everybody.
So before we jump in, we are pretty proud of our Press Club of New Orleans Best Sports Blog in New Orleans award that we received about a week or so ago. Have you, Mason, kind of pissed off all of your friends by requesting that they refer to you as award-winning Mason Ginsberg? Because I've certainly done that.
Every single one of them, and I've gone by other prefixes before for fun, but this time I'm serious. You better be calling every single one of us award-winning writers.
It's better than what they probably usually call us. That's for certain. So. Thank you to everyone for the support we received on that. It's been a lot of fun. It's nice because we have so many different writers to, all of us do this for free. So to get some validation out of it, it's definitely a really good feeling, and it's going to motivate us going forward to keep doing what we do, especially as we enter what seems like it's going to be a really fun season with the Anthony Davis extension, Alvin Gentry in as the new head coach. We might touch on some of that tonight, but there's some other things we kind of want to talk a little bit about. So should we just jump right into this?
Yeah, let's do it.
So first thing we kind of have on our docket here is the changes this offseason, of which there weren't really many, but some things are kind of a little bit different. So Mason, of all of the main guys that say they were signed in Ashik and Ajinça, potentially Cole, Alonzo Gee, Perkins, which one's been your favorite thus far? Which do you think is the most important one?
It's a good question. It's hard for me to pick one, obviously, besides AD. I do like. It's funny because I think I pinned the Ajinça contract very close to what he actually got. I just didn't think it was going to be New Orleans giving it to him. But I think it's good value, and I think based on the new coaching staff and what they're gonna, I think he's a decent fit, and especially if he can drive that foul rate down. He drove it down a little bit last season, which is a great step. And if your new coaching staff can really help him keep pushing that foul rate down, I think it's a great signing. And he showed last year that he deserved minutes. I think he played like 1 minute in the season opener and really proved himself as the season went on. And I'm happy for him. I'm sure he's ecstatic with that new deal. $19 million I think over 4 years. So I think that's one that can really pay off if he's able to stay on the court and not get into foul trouble.
Yeah, I think that's good. He's a pretty good backup. He could probably do pretty well in a bit of a faster pace offense, which obviously is what the Pelicans are going to be running if Summer League's any indication, and the fact that the head coach is Alvin Gentry. So I think he can do really well. I actually really like the Perkins signing, mainly because I don't think he's going to play really any minutes at all, barring some sort of catastrophe. But all the talk about him being a mentor to Davis and sort of coming in with that mental toughness, I think that's going to be really important, especially on kind of a younger team. There's a guy who's, won a title, been to the finals last year, though didn't really do anything there. But, he's a vocal leader, and LeBron recruited him to Cleveland to be that locker room presence. And if he can impart anything of that onto Anthony Davis, I think it's going to be really big going forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, as you said, I don't see him getting any real minutes. But when you talk, the big thing about Perkins to me, beyond the toughness, is if you talk to any teammate he's ever had, they will go out of their way to talk about how great of a teammate Kendrick Perkins is. And so I think that matters in addition to the veteran presence. And Perkins really isn't that old. He's got some championship teams under his belt. So he has the experience that maybe goes beyond his years. But I think he's only around 30 years old. So. It goes along with Demps's young veterans type of thing, I guess.
It's also awesome because I think I got about 40 text messages the night that they signed him with just like pictures and GIFs and memes of him sort of as Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh with his scowls and his frowning faces. And I think someone sent one to me. I'll see if I can find it on my phone and pull it up, where he's holding a basketball and it just goes, "This ball is as heavy as my heart." And that's so much more fun when we have guys on the team we can make fun of. So it should be a lot. Yeah, it's going to be like that all season probably with him. So Norris Cole's yet to sign with another team, yet to be matched most likely by the Pelicans. How do you think that's going to be playing out going forward?
Yeah, I mean, my goal for him was the qualifying offer the entire time, just because I think the Pelicans put a little more long-term guaranteed money up this summer than I was expecting. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just it was just a little different than what I think it was expecting going into the offseason, mainly because I didn't expect the team to bring back Ajinça. I didn't know if he was a guy that they saw, giving being worth whatever raise he was going to get. But for the money, I think it was a solid move. But so I think that Cole's probably going to take the qualifying offer for whatever is $3 million, and I think that's good value. And I wouldn't be opposed to him being on this Pelicans team in the long term, but I don't think there was a real reason to lock him in long term and just let him have one more year playing out his qualifying offer and trying to play for that next contract. So I think he's going to be very helpful for this team.
Yeah, I like him as a backup point guard. I don't know what else you really need other than a guy who can play very good defense, make some good passes, get to the rim a little bit, and he shot quite well for the Pelicans last season, especially from three-point range, which I think kind of surprised probably all of us a little bit. So it was nice to see. I'm with you. They can bring him back long term, but there's no reason to lock themselves into that right now. Like you said, it was a little bit unexpected that the Pelicans brought Ajinça back, that long on a 4-year deal with a lot of guaranteed money, sort of. But, speaking of guaranteed money, and this has kind of been the lightning rod, especially on Twitter all offseason, is Omer Asik. What are you shaking your head about there?
You're exactly right, and it's been frustrating.
Okay, so let's roll with that. So the frustration comes from what?
First of all, people not properly understanding his contract. And I heard so many times, why would you give Omer 5 years and $60 million? And that's just, first of all, it's wrong. That's not what happens. You have to wait for these contract details to come out. And the way it's structured is very interesting. And I still don't know if we know what the incentives are in his contract, but it's $1 million per season in incentives, which is they're unlikely incentives. So what that essentially means is that whatever the incentive is not something he did this past season. And so I don't know if we know what it is yet. I've got to look at Basketball Insiders and see if Pincus or anyone has put it out there. But it's $1 million a year in those incentives. Only $3 million is guaranteed in the last year, in that fifth year. And so I think 4 is 1 year too long. I was really hoping for 3, but the money is reasonable. People seem to just be remembering the Golden State series and how he was borderline unplayable. But there's a lot. I mean, especially looking at the Southwest Division and the Western Conference, there's a lot of centers in this conference that they need him for, and I think that Anthony Davis was a big factor in keeping him too, because AD's been pretty vocal about not, at least at this point in his career, not wanting to play center.
He said that repeatedly. He doesn't want to play center. He doesn't have necessarily the body to bang around with Dwight Howard under the basket. His post game isn't that developed that he needs to be that type of player either. So having a guy that allows him to do what he does best, which is right now shooting kind of from mid-range and being a tear on the pick and roll, which is what you would expect to see him do a lot of this coming season, you don't need him to be a traditional center, and you want to have another one that frees him up to kind of do what he needs to do and do what he does best. And I think that's really important, especially defensively. In Kentucky, he was a monster when he was able to roam around and kind of close out on three-point shooters and swat the ball away. If he's having to defend Dwight Howard underneath in the post, underneath the basket, he's not going to be able to do those sort of things. He's going to be
wasting his athleticism. Exactly. Yeah.
So having a guy like this, even if he's not an ideal fit, it wasn't really like they were going to go out and get someone else. So, re-sign the guy you have, allow it to at least free up Anthony Davis to be way better than what he would be otherwise. And, you roll with the punches, and hopefully the coaching staff can kind of figure this thing out.
Yeah, and I mean, a couple more things that kind of bother me is he doesn't fit in Alvin Gentry's system, which I think is bogus, because in order to start this kind of up-tempo, fast-paced game, you've got to be able to get it stop on defense, get the rebound, and outlet. And that's how you start, and that's how you get running. And is Omer a guy that's going to run up and down the court and be the first guy down either end? No, but he's essential to what they want to do.
And also, if he's the first guy down on either end, you have a bigger problem with like a couple sacks of potatoes playing in your backcourt, and probably they don't have arms that are unable to pass the ball too because they're so slow or something along those lines. But also, he played in Houston 3 years ago. They were like the number 4 ranked pace in the league, and that was one of his better seasons.
Yep.
So there's a lot of people look at him with his tree trunk legs and kind of the lumbering style that he has, but it doesn't necessarily mean he can't actually move a little bit. one of the problems was they just try to get him the ball too damn much. I remember in his opening press conference, he's talking about how he wants to just block shots, grab rebounds, and he's happy. Doesn't need to do anything else. Doesn't want the ball. Doesn't want to try and score. It's fine. Give it to other players. And then Monty Williams comes in and goes, we want to give him the ball like 10 times a game. And everyone's kind of just what? No, this guy says he doesn't want that. Okay, let's not give him the ball under the basket. He can still do things there.
Yeah, I mean, he wants minutes, and obviously when Houston brought in Dwight Howard, that didn't sit well with him. But he's not a guy that you need to force feed the ball to for him to be happy. He just wants to be a part of something special and feel like he's needed. And I think they lost that in Houston. I think it was a bit immature of him, but I think that now he's in a very important role here for New Orleans, and he's going to be very happy.
So what you're saying is we probably need to change your Twitter handles because we are certainly going to hear this in the afternoon. By the vocal part of the anti-Oshik crowd, which nearly led to me getting in a fight at one of our Bourbon Street Shots watch parties of the playoffs. I'm not going to go into that story here, but if you were there, you know what I'm talking about. This guy was screaming at Omer Oshik the entirety of game 2, just standing, screaming. I don't even know if he watched the game. And without Oshik, even though he had a bad series against Golden State, without him in the fourth quarter in game 2, they don't climb back into that and kind of make it close at the end. They lose by 20 easily if that's the case, and that wasn't what happened. So he has value, and like you said, to get through this gauntlet that is the Southwest Division and the Western Conference in general, you need to have a big-bodied center. Yeah, maybe he doesn't work in the playoffs, but he's certainly going to help you get there. And, if you don't make the playoffs, it doesn't matter whether he's going to match up well with someone or not because you're sitting at home.
Yeah.
So before we start getting angrier or try and fight something in my house,
we need to be not just openly praising every move the Pelicans make. Like I wasn't thrilled with the contract. I'll be honest. I think it's gotten unfair heat. As if people are calling it one of the worst contracts of the offseason, I think that's ridiculous. You and I disagree on Cantor a little bit, but I think that was.
Yeah, hold on. Okay, we can jump into that. So is Cantor your least favorite contract this offseason?
Absolutely. No question.
So who's your winner in the offseason?
I mean, it's so funny because they were so close to being the losers, but I love what the Clippers did. I think that not only did they somehow steal in one of the most hilarious days on basketball Twitter in history with the with camping out at DeAndre Jordan's house.
So you think they had a better offseason than the Spurs did?
I mean, the Spurs, it's just not fair because everyone always they have such a great organizational culture where everyone takes less money to keep their core together. And so I just think the Spurs are playing on a different level than everyone else. But I think in terms of exceeded expectations, I got to go with the Clippers.
So who do you think had the worst?
I don't know. I think about. Do you have any idea off the top of your head?
I mean, so Mason and I, in emails and text messages and G chats, have gone back and forth on this with that Cantor contract. And I think OKC might have had one of the worst off seasons out of all teams in the league, actually.
Yeah.
But with Cantor, if we're going to digress off the Pelicans a little bit, I guess they play.
We're so opposed on this, so it's fine. I think we can do that.
What else are they supposed to do? You let him go, it's kind of like the Clippers with DeAndre Jordan. If he's not there, that team looks so much worse. And even if you have to overpay a guy, they didn't have another option to bring someone else in. So for that alone to keep a player, yeah, maybe you have to overpay him. I also think his defense is, it's bad, but he also was on this team that was decimated by injuries, maybe just as badly as the Pelicans were. If you pair him with Serge Ibaka, I think it's a little bit different. With a healthy KD and Westbrook, I think he can thrive in there, and I think offensively he works in better than almost any other center in the league potentially. Dude can shoot threes. When you have Westbrook and Durant that attack the rim constantly, you want to give him that lane, and if he can pull a body out of there, a defender out of there, I think that's going to be really big. Same thing with Anthony Davis if he starts shooting 1 million three-pointers a game. That's why Ryan Anderson's so deadly as that stretch four. That's why these guys are in vogue, because you pull a body out and it frees up someone else to kind of drive on in there.
Yeah, looking at just forgetting OKC, looking at what Utah was able to do the second they traded him, and Utah after that trade was by no small margin the best defensive team in basketball, and it was about a 2-month period. And I think the Spurs may have been second best, but Utah was Gobert and the Jazz were just crushing everyone on the defensive end. And I mean, I think they're almost with the Mavericks losing DeAndre. I'm not as high on Phoenix's moves as I love Tyson Chandler move, but I'm not as high on Phoenix as others. I think Utah is definitely a playoff team this year.
Oh yeah, I like them a lot, especially with good coaching and a lot of young talent. So, all right, let's move on and go back to the Pelicans a little bit, because we could probably go for days on Enes Kanter, which why would anyone do that? Summer League, you were there. How pointless is it?
It's really fun for networking reasons. I got to meet a lot of people that I've just conversed with on Twitter on their respective teams, and so I've done the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference twice now, and now I've done the Summer League 1.5 times. It coincided with a friend's bachelor party like 3 years ago, so I got to check it out in 2012. But I enjoyed it. I think it was. I think it's a fun experience. I think it's great for young players. I think people tend to just read too much into it. We'll talk about Seth Curry in a second, but it was. I really loved talking to some of the assistant coaches. It was great to see like Gordon and Pondexter and Gentry out there. Darren Erman is fantastic. I got Scott Kushner. I got a chance to talk to him for a little bit after the game, their third game on that Monday, and he's the nicest guy. He's like he looks like he's 23. I mean, like I think he's in his late 30s, but he looks like a kid. He has so much fun coaching, and he works so hard, and I'm really excited to have him on the staff.
So yeah, absolutely. We're going to touch on the coaching staff in a second, but one of the things that you mentioned it, Seth Curry. So I had a lot of people that seemed quite angry that the Pelicans more or less gave that roster spot instead of to Seth Curry. They gave it to Perkins. What's your take from what you saw on him in Summer League, and would you have liked them to bring him in maybe on a guaranteed contract?
The funny thing about this is when he signed with Sacramento, people saying that he should play over Rajon Rondo, which is hilarious and maybe even true. But I think people were generally overrating Seth Curry. He played great, and it was amazing how efficiently he scored without shooting the ball well from 3-point range.
That's the key.
It was pretty unbelievable, but you have to remember the kind of the competition he's going up against. Curry's a guy who's been around the league a couple years, so he's going to have that kind of experience advantage over maybe a talented rookie like Okafor, Porzingis, those guys. So even though those guys are more talented, Curry has the experience under his belt, and they were able to play in a system, Erman Pack, Gentry, that system that it got them out running, and they were able to kind of blitz teams, and they got out to so many quick starts. And I would have liked to have Curry, but when the Kings gave him a player option for year 2, that was just unexpected. And I think the Pelicans could have had him if they wanted him, but they ultimately decided that was not the right call. So.
Well, you touched on it. He didn't shoot well. He got to the rim a lot, and he scored a lot of points. But is that what this Pelicans team needs out of another guard? You have Tyreke Evans, you have Drew Holiday, who can kind of both do that. Eric Gordon, in the past has been able to. I don't know if he can really quite do that the same anymore. And right now, for this Alvin Gentry offense, I think the more important thing is spacing. You need a guy who can shoot and space the court and stretch the defense. And Curry didn't exactly show that off, and if he's kind of a guy who needs the ball in his hands to get his points at the rim, I don't see him fitting in. Yes, the points look great, but it's also Summer League. Everyone will tell you it's pointless.
He was in the D League last year. I mean, I feel like people are pretending that he's some sort of rookie. Like, he was in the developmental league last year. He had like I said, I would have liked to see him on the Pelicans. I think he could have been another asset that the team added, but I don't disagree with what the Pelicans ultimately chose when the Kings offered him a player option in year 2.
No, absolutely. When that's what's on the table. No, you also have a guy like Larry Drew II who actually looked pretty good. He shot a little bit better than Curry did. I would expect that he's going to get an invite to training camp and a chance to maybe earn that last roster spot that they're going to have. Was there anyone else you liked?
Unfortunately, because the Pelicans were so damn good, I only got to see one game because I booked my trip before from Sunday to Thursday, and
all the time.
They got a first round bye, and so they played their next game after I got there. After the Monday game was Thursday, so. But I tuned in as much as I could, and I agree. I think Larry Drew is I don't think he's a 14th, 15th guy on your roster. He's probably going to be on injured reserve or whatever, or the inactive list. I'm sorry. Yeah, because he had, I think, 16 assists in the game I was at. So like he showed his ability.
That's the type of guy that I think they're looking for. Someone who can facilitate the offense, hit a couple spot up shots over a guy who's going to feast at the rim and not do a whole lot else.
Yeah. So.
What do you think of, given that the small forward depth might be a little lacking because we don't know if Pondexter is going to be ready to start the season. Alonzo Guy is Alonzo Guy and isn't exactly the sexiest player they could have gone out and signed. Edwin Fuqua, I think that's how you pronounce it. What do you think of him?
No one else really. It's some of these guys played well given the circumstances and given the team players that we're going up against. But I don't know. Maybe a couple of the guys get camp invites, but I don't. None of these guys are NBA players for any meaningful amount of time. So I think
pointless.
Kind of.
Summer league is pointless. I enjoyed I tried to stay away and have like a bit of a summer break myself. And I saw all the stuff going on Twitter and so many people asking me. And finally one day I sat down and just watched all the games kind of back to back to back and powered through them and wasted a day. But one of the good things to come out of Summer League was the coaching staff, particularly Pack and Ehrman, and what they were able to do and kind of show off the ability that, in the system that this Pelicans team might be running. So you touched on Ehrman a little bit. It seems like this dude's going to be really important to the team going forward.
Yeah, the only question is how long he's with the Pelicans, because he's definitely going to be a head coach at some point in his career. Like I have zero doubt about that. So hopefully, he's the lead assistant now. So I would hope being able to coach Anthony Davis that the only reason he would leave is to get a head coaching gig elsewhere. So I think we'll have him for enough time. Hopefully at least a couple years. For the team to really flourish on the defensive end with under his tutelage. And so, everything, I was just blown away by how easygoing he is. You hear about being always in the gym, being such a hard worker, and actually talking to him and seeing how just loose and easygoing he is, and just being able to enjoy the moment and appreciate it. Almost like Monty, in the sense that you could always tell Monty Williams was fortunate, knew how fortunate he was to be in the position he was. I think Ehrman's the same way, but Ehrman's just a lot more jovial and happy, and it was just really fun talking to him, getting to know him. He was giving me. He went to law school in Chicago. He was giving me Chicago recommendations. He's such a nice guy.
And what do you think of Pack? What do you think his role is going to be going forward? I have an idea of what they kind of brought him in to do, but I'll share it in a second. But I'm curious to see what you think he's going to be doing going forward.
Yeah, I think Pack made sense for a lot of reasons. Yeah, he's a local guy. He's spoken very highly of in Oklahoma City, and he'll be with a team that has so many dynamic guards like the Pelicans do. I think it was a very astute move on their part to bring him in and work with guys like Tyreek and Eric and Drew. So it seems like the biggest reason for Pack coming in.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's designed. He's not a robot, but they built him for this one thing only. I think his role is going to be get those guards to buy into whatever system they're going to be running and whatever roles they're going to particularly have to play. As a former point guard, these are all guys who kind of want the ball in hands. In Gordon, Holiday, Evans, particularly Evans, I think he's going to try and get the buy-in really quickly to play better defense, to be controlled offensively rather than attacking the rim, like a Tasmanian devil and sort of making those circus shots that drive me absolutely insane. I think he's designed to get these guys to come in, get the buy-in, get them to buy into the system, the team aspect of everything. And if he can do that, that's where this backcourt of these three guards that hasn't always made the most sense at times. We might start getting a clearer picture of what they all can contribute and how they can all kind of work within the offense together and have a lot of synergy, which I don't think we've always seen from them at times, unless one was injured and it kind of fixes the problem for you.
Yeah, and granted, I didn't get to spend a ton of time with the old coaching staff, but it kind of felt to me like they were, helping the players improve at basketball, but not necessarily trying to change those players into playing a different way. So, for example, I wrote about last January, Tyreek, his percentage at the rim was just well below his career averages, and just kind of looking at why it was, and the main reason I think was because he was actively avoiding contact and trying to make these circus shots that you referred to instead of going to the free throw line. And I wonder did anyone tell him just take the contact? Well, I mean, look at James Harden, for example. I mean, that's the gold standard, of course. But like, you know, I just started to wonder if the coaching was just about improving your talent and not necessarily adjusting to become more efficient. And so I'm interested to see how this new staff can maybe succeed in areas where the old staff failed.
Yeah, and I mean, it's probably one of the reasons they made the coaching changes and just kind of looked at this and realized this wasn't who was going to be able to lead us best going forward, and rip off kind of the Band-Aid in a sense. So the Western Conference, we talked a little bit about winners and losers, and this is going to be rough. This isn't fair. This is like the perfect reason, and it goes back years and decades. Kushner at The Advocate wrote about it. Scott Kushner, good friend of the site, good friend of mine, has written about this, where it's been like 20 years of just like Western Conference, domination during the regular season, better record, better teams, things like that. Let's think of some stupidly early predictions and see where the Pelicans are going to try and fit into this whole thing.
Yeah. So it sucks, obviously. I was talking today about, or earlier today on Twitter, about the who would win in a playoff series, whether it be the 8th seed in the West or the 2nd seed in the East, and taking basically anyone but the Cavs would the 8th seed in the West, whether it's I think that's Utah right now. How many games would the series go, and who would win against the 2nd seed in the East, whatever team it ends up being? And it's tough, and I think even last year with the Pelicans, they could, depending on, I know home court would be an issue, but I think that even the Pelicans, the 8th seed, would have given any non-Cleveland team. So I know the Hawks were the 1 seed, but at least a good series. And so it's not going away. It's the Western Conference. It's brutal, but I think that the Pelicans are in a good position with the degree of continuity they're going to have this year. Assuming we can stay healthy. But I think I'm sitting around 60 right now. I think the Lawson addition for Houston, assuming he can stay out of trouble, is a great move, and it's a typical Daryl Morey move in my opinion. And I think that I was selling myself on the fact that maybe Houston the Pelicans could jump Houston, but I don't think that's the case anymore. They have a lot of high degree of continuity too. They're bringing back pretty much their whole squad, and except for I guess Josh Smith, that loss will hurt them, but. I think if we're going to jump any other teams, obviously besides Portland or Dallas falling out, I think we could maybe jump Memphis. But counting them out is always a mistake, even though they keep getting older. But they added Brandon Wright, which was a great move, I think. So I think 6 seed would be reasonable, or 7 seed. Anything below that, if they have the 8th seed again, I think that's kind of a disappointment. But 6 or 7 seed kind of makes the most sense, I think.
Yeah, I think on the high end, you're looking at their like massive ceiling being the 4 seed, and that's going to take a lot of luck to get some, that high. I think, like you said, if they made the 6, I'd be happy.
Top 4 are just so good, with the Clippers bringing back Jordan now. The top 4 are just so good. I don't know.
It sucks. I think that's the best way to sum this up.
Yeah.
It's just like, what are you going to do? Everyone it was like an arms race out there. It's like a Cold War where everyone just keeps adding nuclear missiles to their arsenal, and they're actually going to get to unleash them during the regular season in the playoffs, and it's going to be a bloodbath out there.
Yeah.
Like all those SEC teams that beat up on each other throughout, the regular season, and sometimes it cost them. The Pac-10 had that about 8 years or so ago, where the best teams just kept knocking each other.
You're not going to make many friends comparing the Pac-10 to the SEC football, so I would stay away from that.
I led with the SEC at least, so that was a good start, maybe. Okay, so anyway, yeah, the SEC knocking their top teams out because they're all so amazing, everyone in the SEC. So before we start to wrap up, we want to have some fun with it. Over-unders. We have a couple things here, and then I think we're probably just going to try and stump each other is my goal, and I'm just going to warn you right now that's what I'm going for. So over-under of 48.5 wins for the Pelicans this coming season.
I got to go over. I think they were a 50-win team after the additions of Pondexter and Cunningham and Cole, and that was largely without Drew Holiday. And you got to figure they're not going to have so many troubles with all of those Eastern Conference teams they lost to like last year. So I mean, just removing the loss to like the Knicks and the Sixers, and I know that Drew and AD were both out for those games, but those are just two examples. I think just removing the bad losses like that, obviously they'll happen every now and then, but they happened a lot last year. And so I do think over. I think they're a 50-win team, and depending on how much continuity matters, maybe even more.
Yeah, I think it's over too. I don't think by much. I think you're kind of looking maybe. If you could get 50, 51, 52 wins, we'd be pretty happy. 50 is a good mark to hit. It's kind of a nice little milestone. And, especially with the injuries they had last season, it seems like if they were healthy, they might have been able to do that. And we're expecting the coaching staff to be a big upgrade as well. So no real reason other than the West being the worst thing ever or the best thing ever to try and reach that. So another one I wanted to ask, who, not over under, but who has the higher 3-point percentage? Is it going to be Eric Gordon or Anthony Davis?
That's
just percentage. We're not going off attempts, things like that.
That's not fair. It's Gordon. I mean, especially like I think what was it that he could get? Gentry could get a corpse and open shot, and so I think Gordon qualifies as just slightly more than a corpse. And so he was. I mean, I don't know if he's going to shoot as well as he shot last year. Like he shot 45%. That's really good. I mean, I don't.
For the season though, it was higher. For the second half when he came back from that injury too.
Right. Oh yeah, he was.
Look at that. It was insane. That's over when he wasn't shooting that well to start the year. Remember, he had a horrible start to last season.
I wrote about him being taken out of the starting lineup. You know how stupid I feel about that? Like, come on. He was terrible, and then he got hurt, and we were like, oh, like this is typical.
Whatever, right?
He's not coming back.
Look, you wrote about how he should be taken out. I wrote about how I couldn't see a way his game would improve.
Yeah. And so credit
the turning point.
Credit what's that?
The turning point.
Oh yeah, you want to say it or should I?
I'll let you. You weren't there.
He attended a certain watch party for a certain award-winning site in December, and after that, I think that was the turning point in his season. It's pretty clear. I mean, I don't know how you can possibly dispute it.
So, of the watch party at our good friends over at Tracy's on the original Irish Channel bar, we'll pump them, on 3rd and Magazine Street. I'm going to be there tomorrow, Wednesday, guest bartending for media night, and I have never bartended before in my life. So, I'm going to set the over-under on my bartending skills at a 5.5. You going over or under?
Under. God, under.
I feel like I can do this.
You just prefaced your over under with saying I've never done this before and there's no way I can possibly do good, and then you gave the over under at above average 5.5.
Right. So Tracy's is not like a fancy cocktail bar. That's going to help me, right? I think I can open some Bud Lights with the openers and maybe do it a little bit quickly. Like if someone were to come in. Our good friend Scott Alexander, host of one of the radio shows down here on 100.3 ESPN NOLA, apparently forgot how to make a scotch on the rocks. I'm pretty sure I can do that.
I think you make those in your apartment all the time, so I'm pretty sure you can handle that.
I do not drink alone or anything like that, but I try and sneak behind the bar at other places I go to make them myself. I've been getting some tips. I was last night over at, with a couple friends who are bartenders, asking them some ideas on what to do. So we'll see. Also, everyone should come by. It should be a lot of fun. You can watch me make a fool of myself. I think there's drink specials. The food there is pretty good to begin with, and we have our watch parties there. So it's a good chance to come check it out, talk some Pelicans basketball tomorrow night if you got nothing to do. It's too hot to be outside anyway.
Cool. I wish you the best of luck.
It's going to be interesting. I'm glad they're not going to film it.
So much foam coming in the draft beers you're pouring. So much.
So under. Thank you. I'm glad my best friends has faith in me. Drew Holiday. Weird situation this offseason with money being paid to the Pelicans from the 76ers. That whole situation is a little bit bizarre. We don't really know enough to try and judge it or anything like that. So
yeah, I feel like
over under of 60 games played for him.
Yeah, that's probably something we should have talked about, but it's very simple because we don't know. You're right. Like that's it. We don't know anything. Like
that's Pelicans agree on this. Was this a ruling handed down by the NBA and they didn't have a choice? Were they happy? They're not going to comment on it. We're not going to find out. I've been asked this on the radio a ton, and it's sort of you throw your arms up and go, okay, whatever. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, you can be frustrated with Hinkie. You can be frustrated with with the medical staff. You can be frustrated with a lot of people, but you can't. We don't know anything, and it's a crappy situation. It is, but it is it is what it is, and so you just have to assume that the league knows more and knows enough to make the correct punishment. And would I have liked to get a first-round pick back from Philly? Yeah, it would have been awesome. But I mean, I don't.
That's never going to happen.
Say that's what we deserve.
So over under, given the past 2 seasons and now what we know that maybe it was kind of 3 seasons in Philadelphia, over under 60 games played.
I mean, obviously I want to say over, but it's just.
What's your heart tell you?
My heart tells me under, but it doesn't. It's not like drastically under. I think I don't know. 60 is a good over under, I think, and that's like, yeah. I go under, but I'm trying not to be the eternal optimist, but not terribly so. Like I think he plays more than half the season, and I think he's going to play more games than he played, than last season, and we'll see. Maybe the Pelicans take the cautious approach like they did with Eric Gordon, and not push him too hard on back-to-backs and stuff like that. But we'll see. I'm cautiously optimistic.
I think it's over. I think, from what it sounds like, these things, you just really need to rest them. And maybe this was, occurring longer than the Pelicans realized, and they didn't give him the proper rest. And now that he's kind of had it, I think that could, really be a big advantage. It sounds like he spent the offseason watching his wife, which, by the way, he's got to go out and win a title now because she just picked up, the biggest honor that she could. And scored a goal in the final, so good for her. So he's got to really, want to go out there and play.
Brother too.
I think he's going to be, brother too. Wow, he's just in that entire family, the black sheep. So who has a higher 3-point percentage, Eric Gordon or Ryan Anderson?
That's good. I'm going Anderson, and I don't know. I think Anderson's going to be one of those great bounce back guys this year. I think defensively there are still huge question marks. He's been just atrocious on the defensive end, and hopefully being more healthy will help with that. Hopefully coaching will help with that. But I think he bounces back offensively this year for sure, and I'm really excited to see him shoot the ball.
I'm going to go with Eric Gordon because I've been working with him all offseason, as I did at that one Pelicans watch party to learn how to shoot even better. So I'm predicting 60% for Eric Gordon from 3. Potentially MVP candidate. I'm sure people thought Jimmer was going to be last season. So I had another one and I just forgot it. So let's use McNamara's of 100 3-point attempts for Anthony Davis.
So that's just over 1 a game, assuming he plays in all 82, obviously. But so I guess if you think he's going to shoot 1.5 threes a game, then you go over.
But is that what you think?
Yeah, I mean the possessions are going to go way up. You got to factor that in as well. I mean they were one of the slowest paced teams in the league last year, and so there are going to be more shots for everyone just because the game's going to go faster. So I'll go. 100. How many did he take last year, including the game winner?
I have no idea. I haven't looked it up. This was just a question.
Yeah. I think over/under is 100 is pretty good, and I go slightly over. I think 1.5 a game is reasonable for him.
I'm going under, and this is maybe wishful thinking on my part. I don't really want him shooting a ton of threes, to be honest. Like I'd rather have him sort of try and get the ball down low and maybe develop his post game more, or get him the ball on the pick and roll rather than him shooting 3-pointers. To be honest, we saw how well that offense started to look when they kind of ran it through him, which is what I was screaming about them to do all season. If you look at his touches in the front court per game last year, it's absolutely atrocious. It was like under 1 a possession. They would had however many possessions, and he would only get. There were times when he wasn't touching the ball. It's just not what you want to see. And I like them kind of running the offense through him, like Gentry has said, kind of like what Memphis does a little bit with Marc Gasol at times, where you get him the ball at that free throw line extended, and everyone kind of rotates around that. And we saw he could be kind of a pretty good passer, especially late in the season. I'd rather do that to potentially tire defenses out more because there's a lot more off-ball movement than him stepping out and hitting the 3-point shot, even though I know 3-point shots, are awesome.
And I think you have to factor in that Davis, it's not like Davis is going to go camp out in the corner. That's probably the worst thing that could happen because you need to use his unique skill set as best you can. But can you imagine a situation where Tyrese got the ball at the top of the key and Anderson's in one corner and Davis is in the other, and you have to guard both of those guys. And I just, Tyreek's just gonna have his eyes are gonna light up, and the spacing is gonna be incredible. And I understand where you're coming from, and I don't want him shooting a ton more than 100 threes in the year, I don't think, but I just thinking about the potential for spacing there is very appealing. Speaking of, one thing I've been kind of talking about on Twitter a little bit, and I could be totally wrong on this, but do you think that one of the goals for this coaching staff in terms of like the bench players is, with Dante Cunningham in particular, do you think he starts shooting more threes this year?
I completely forgot about him. Yeah, I think that's weird. I think, yeah, you have to. Why not take a step back? He has the range. He has a money, 20-footer. Go back a little bit further, and you can start hitting these shots. And I think it'll be really important. He's really important. He's really important to Eric Gordon in sort of how Gordon became the player he was. Notice that at least in Monty Williams' offense, I don't think it's going to be quite the case for Alvin Gentry. There was always a guy that's an anchor down in the corner, usually on the left side. That's kind of where Gordon went. He would go sit in that corner and not move. And we would all get on him for just standing there. But it's really just an anchor, a floor spacer. And when Cunningham started to come in and hit those shots right inside the three-point line, it allowed Eric Gordon to kind of rotate up and be at the top of the key, the top of the three-point arc. And Gordon's not the greatest corner three shooter, but from dead on, he's pretty money. And so you can just stretch that out a little bit further and use Cunningham as that kind of anchor down low in the corner. If you use him as the outlet, you're getting an extra point per possession, and that's going to be huge, especially with the teams that they're going to be playing. And with more possessions, if he can start hitting more of those shots, that's going to add up pretty quickly.
Yeah, and the two sides to this is, if I just can't see Cunningham's field goal percentage dropping so significantly from taking that step back to make it not worth it. So, like, even if he goes from, I don't know, if he shot, I think close to 50% last year? So if you go from, say, 45% to 35% by taking the step back, it's still worth it, easily worth it. And so the other side of that is for Tuesday night in Vegas, they did media appreciation night, which I really wish they had told me before the day because I rolled up in flip-flops that day. So they let us all go on the court after the games were over, and they had like different shooting competitions, like three-point shootout and bump and all this stuff. And man, I haven't spent a ton of time on the NBA three-point line. Not many courts you'll play on for pickup have that NBA three-point line. And so obviously we're all chucking from that distance. And man, it's further than you think. The distance between the college three and the NBA three it feels a lot different. And I don't think I expected such a huge difference.
So as we start to wrap up, your terrible basketball skills aside, one of the things that's been thrown out there is Kevin Durant and the potential that he comes to the Pelicans, this next offseason. And that's going to be obviously the biggest thing since LeBron, the first time going to the Heat as a free agent. Over under of 11% his chances coming to the Pelicans.
Why 11%?
I have no idea. I don't think I want to use 50. I don't think I want to use 30. I don't think I want to use 25. Gives you an option for 10%.
Yeah, I've been saying 10% is about right. Like I think you can't call it likely, obviously, but I think 9.9% of the 10% is just being able to play with Anthony Davis. I think that's a huge selling point. I think it's one that people. I don't think anyone's even listing the Pelicans as a potential landing spot for KD, and I think that's wrong. Just because you get to play with a guy like KD through his prime for the next 4 or 5 seasons, I think that's got to be incredibly appealing. And so, obviously not likely. I think DC. I think going home to the Wizards makes a lot of sense for him, just because it gets out of the Western Conference for one. They have some young talent there. I think Bradley Beal may have regressed a little bit last year, and I know he spent some time injured. But I think that team, Otto Porter, I thought played very well in the playoffs last year, and I think he's finally, maybe not a top 5 talent like he was drafted, but he played very well, and I think that Wizards team would be a pretty decent spot for KD, just for all the obvious reasons. So. I think they're the front runners. Obviously, you got to consider OKC because Russell Westbrook and Ibaka are there. That's still a damn good team.
So if I said the over-under was at 9.5%, you would say over.
Yeah, I feel like I'm sticking around 10%. I think it's fine.
So, okay, so if we want to give Pelicans fans hopes, Mason is taking over 9.5% on KD coming to New Orleans next season. I think 10% is the right number. I think they probably get a meeting, and we've seen that getting those meetings is actually really important for the way people view your franchise.
Yeah.
So why not get the meeting? Go for it. You've got nothing to lose. You still have this team here, if not otherwise, and you have a chance to put two of the best players in the league together, and that's clearly what it takes to win a title. So last one I've got. We're talking Anthony Davis in MVP finishing of over under 2.5.
That's good.
Proud of that one, actually.
Man. He led the league in player efficiency rating last year, and now he's in the spotlight. Like, at least he got to the playoffs, and now I think he's even more in the spotlight than he was. I think even going to the playoffs last year, you had some people that didn't truly understand or appreciate properly how good Anthony Davis is already. And I'll go. I'm trying to figure out how to word this over under. So under 2.5, meaning he'll be.
I think he finishes in the top two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think he finishes in the top two, and I think going into the season after, he'd be the odds-on favorite probably to win the MVP award.
Yeah, who do you have with him? So I think I don't think Curry wins it again. I think that team overall is just so good now that it's. I mean, if you want to go best player on best team, I still think Golden State's the best team because that's a young team and they're gonna be awesome again.
It's Curry or Harden. I think those are the only two most likely that you're going to be able to put in.
Durant, LeBron, like Durant's going to be healthy, hopefully.
If he's healthy, yes, but there's also so much talent on that team that he kind of needs to spread the ball around a little bit more with Westbrook there. Cantor's going to shoot a bunch of threes because he's the best player they have on that team, as we were talking about earlier. I think Harden and his ability to get to the line and how that inflates his point total, which he deserves, he gets to the line, is so good. And the fact that Harden actually tried on defense last year was pretty impressive. And
the fact that he tried was impressive.
You've got to start somewhere, okay? Baby steps.
No, James Harden was my MVP last year, and I mean, you couldn't go wrong with Curry or Harden.
No, it was going to work either way.
Yeah, the people who are yelling at the other camp for like picking one or the other, it's silly. Like they were both phenomenal. They were both huge assets to their teams, and but yeah, I don't know. It's so tough because like you have a clear top five, I think, in the league right now with Harden, Curry, Bron, Durant, and KD and AD. So I mean, saying top two is tough, but I think AD is going to be incredible.
I'm with you. It's a weird one. It's tough to say, hey, yes, he's going to finish in the top two of MVP voting, but I actually really think it, especially as he's going to be a bigger focal point of this offense, and get the ball even more, which is just absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
So I did think of one more.
Okay.
Because I'm guest bartending tomorrow night, and I know you think so highly of my skills, rating me under a 5.5.
Just like my basketball skills, apparently, are like equitable to your bartending skills.
No one's seen me play, and we'll probably keep it that way. It's not anything pretty. My release on my shots is way too low.
I saw it in Austin, Texas. Guys, he's not kidding. It's bad.
My jump shot is horrible. You could give me the best coach in the league, and it wouldn't be able to fix it. So over under.
He's the Alfred Camino of pickup games.
Over under 5 of our readers come by Tracy's tomorrow for media night and order just obnoxious drinks that I'm not going to be able to make.
Oh, nice. Thank you for saying that, because unless you first of all, we'll see how many people actually watch this and get to the very end.
Okay.
But I think that now that you've said it, then definitely over. I'll make sure I'll send my friends over and try to order the most ridiculous drink that I can possibly think of.
Trick question. I'm going to let Justin make those. He's the standard bartender there. He's going to be there to back me up. So I'm not going to make any of those. But if anyone needs a Bud Light, a Miller Lite, something like that, I will absolutely open it for you all. So thank you all for watching. We'll probably do 1 or 2 more of these this offseason. We'll try and keep them going throughout the regular season as we get closer to it, training camp, and then preseason, then the start of the regular season. I know we're very excited. It's been a busier offseason than we would have expected. So, follow Bourbon Street Shots on Twitter. It's at Bourbon Street Shots with an ST in there. Follow at Mason Ginsberg, myself at Nola Jake. The rest of our writers, keep checking the site for the latest updates and everything you might need. And we've got you covered, and, we're award winning. There's no better place to check out to get your Pelicans coverage. And like I always say, We just want to make you a smarter fan and keep you as informed as possible. So we're going to keep, we're looking forward to keeping that going for this coming season.
Yeah, couldn't said it better myself. All great. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. And yeah, I think I suggested doing this to Jake last week, and just it's fun. It helps us all keep in touch, and we'll probably do it one or two more times before the season kicks off. I think it'd be fun to talk. I'm excited for that preseason game at Rupp Arena with the Pels. That's going to be really cool.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and I have some other things planned with some more multimedia things, so I'm excited as we get closer to the season to break some of that out. So, again, thank you all for watching.
You want to do something in person and when you come up for the Saints-Colts game in October?
We'll probably do something. We probably just Periscope the entire weekend, which might not be appropriate, but we'll find out. So, everyone, thank you for watching. Really appreciate it. Keep following us. Pester us with questions on Twitter. Don't order weird drinks from me tomorrow night because I'm not going to make them. Thank you so much, and you all have a good one.
Have a good night, guys.